It was well past midnight, and I, Ethan Caldwell, was dragging my tired feet across the 5th floor of a massive parking garage on the edge of downtown Chicago. The air was heavy, like it was holding something back, making it hard to breathe. The garage was an unfinished monstrosity, a concrete beast with gray pillars and rusted rebar sticking out of the walls like jagged bones. Fluorescent lights buzzed annoyingly, flickering and casting long, twisted shadows across the floor. My car, a beat-up silver Honda Civic, was parked at the far end, alone under a stuttering lamp, like the only living thing in this concrete cave. When I reached the car, my breath caught in my throat. A muddy handprint smeared the windshield, its fingers splayed wide, as if someone had pressed their palm against the glass with deliberate force. I'd washed the car just that morning at the gas station, under the weak autumn sun. No way was this here earlier. I wiped at it with my sleeve, but the dirt only smudged like it was embedded in the glass. My heart beat a little faster. Damn kids, I muttered, but deep down, I knew no kid would be lurking up here this late. I glanced around. The garage was empty, just the hum of the lights and the distant drip of water echoing in my ears. I unlocked the car and slid inside. The familiar smell of worn leather and stale coffee greeted me. I turned the key, and the engine growled to life, its low rumble bouncing off the concrete walls. But then a sound, a soft rustle from the back seat, like fabric shifting or someone letting out a quiet breath. I froze, my hand still on the key. Slowly, I turned, my eyes scanning the darkness of the back seat. Nothing, just my gym bag and a crumpled water bottle. I let out a shaky laugh. I'm exhausted, that's all, I told myself. But when I reached to adjust the rearview mirror, my fingers brushed something cold. The mirror was loose, dangling from its mount. I frowned, trying to fix it, but it slipped and clattered to the floorboard. My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't touched that mirror in weeks. How had it come loose? I bent down to grab it, my fingers grazing the gritty floor mat. As I straightened, a faint whisper curled through the air, too soft to make out the words. I strained to listen. Nothing but the engine's hum and that distant drip. "You're losing it, Ethan," I muttered. I shifted into gear and started down the spiral ramp. The garage felt like a maze, each turn identical, the dim lights throwing shadows that seemed to move just out of sight. On the 3rd floor, the car lurched. The brakes hissed, engaging on their own. My foot wasn't on the pedal. I pressed the gas, but the car slowed again, like someone else was stepping on the brake. My heart was in my throat. I slammed on the brake myself, stopping dead in the middle of the ramp. Cold sweat beaded on my forehead. I checked the dashboard. No warning lights. I tried the gas again, and this time the car moved normally. I let out a shaky breath, telling myself it was just a mechanical glitch. Old car, old problems. But the feeling of being watched was unbearable now. The air inside the car felt thick, like I was breathing through a wet cloth. I glanced at the side mirror, and my stomach dropped. There, in the reflection, was a tall, shadowy figure standing right behind my car, its edges blurred like smoke. I whipped around, my breath hitching. The ramp was empty. No one was there. But when I looked back at the mirror, the figure was still there, closer now, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. "Jesus!" I gasped, fumbling for the door handle. I stumbled out, my legs shaking, and spun around, scanning the garage. The flickering lights buzzed louder, casting strobe-like flashes across the concrete. Nothing. No one. I checked the mirror again. The figure was gone. My breath was ragged, trapped in my chest. "You're tired," I told myself. "You're seeing things. Just get home." I turned back to the car and froze. The rear passenger door was ajar, just a crack, the interior light spilling a faint glow onto the concrete. I knew that door was closed. I checked it when I got in. My mouth went dry as I approached, my steps echoing in the cavernous space. I yanked the door open. The back seat was empty, but the air felt colder, heavier, like stepping into a freezer. And there, on the seat, was something new. A small plastic dinosaur, its paint chipped, its eyes scratched out. My stomach churned. I didn't own anything like that. I didn't have kids, didn't know anyone who'd leave a toy in my car. I reached for it, then stopped, my hand hovering. The air around me seemed to hum, a low vibration that made my teeth ache. I slammed the door shut and scrambled back into the driver's seat, my hands trembling on the wheel. I floored the gas, the tires screeching as the car shot down the ramp. The lights flickered faster, plunging the garage into brief moments of darkness. On the second floor, the radio crackled to life, spitting static before a low, distorted voice came through. "Stay," it said, the word stretched like a warped tape. I slammed the power button, but the radio stayed on, the voice repeating, "Stay, stay." I swerved around the final turn, the exit gate in sight, its red and white arm glowing under a sodium lamp. But as I approached, the gate started to lower, creaking down with a mechanical groan. "No, no, no," I yelled, waving my parking pass at the sensor. It didn't budge. The radio hissed again, the voice louder now. "You can't leave." Panic blurred my vision. I threw the car into reverse, desperate to find another exit, but the engine sputtered and died. The garage lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely, plunging me into darkness. All I could hear was my own ragged breathing, and then a soft tap 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 on the rear window. I shouldn't have looked. Every instinct screamed not to, but I couldn't stop myself. I turned slowly, my eyes locking onto the rear window. In the faint glow of the exit sign, I saw it, a face. Not human, not entirely. Its skin was gray, stretched tight like parchment over bone, its eyes black voids that seemed to pull at my soul. It pressed its hand, the hand, against the glass, leaving a fresh, muddy print. I screamed, slamming my foot on the gas, even though the engine was dead. The car didn't move. The face tilted, its lipless mouth curling into a chilling smile. And then, in a blink, it was gone. The lights snapped back on. The engine roared to life, and the gate began to rise. I didn't hesitate. I floored it, tires screeching as I shot out of the garage and onto the empty street. I didn't stop until I reached a 24-hour diner, its bright lights like a beacon in the night. My hand was still shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. When I finally mustered the courage to check the back seat again, the toy was gone. But the handprint on the windshield was still there, clearer now, the dirt smeared into the shape of a word. Stay. I never went back to that garage. A week later, I sold the car, unable to shake the feeling that something was still inside, watching me. But sometimes, in the dead of night, I awake to the sound of tapping on my apartment window. I lie there, frozen, too terrified to look, because deep down, I know whatever was in that garage didn't stay there. The faint blue glow of the security monitors was the only thing cutting through the darkness of the tiny control room in the basement of the old university library in Boston. It was past 2 in the morning, and the silence of the library felt like a heavy blanket, smothering everything. Only the creak of ancient wooden shelves and the occasional drip of water from some unseen pipe broke the stillness. I was on the night shift, alone in this cavern of dusty books, with towering shelves that seemed to stretch into the shadowy ceilings. The library always felt alive at night, like it was breathing, like something was lurking in the shadows. Suddenly, a warning flashed on one of the monitors. Unauthorized movement. 3rd floor. My heart stopped for a moment. The 3rd floor was locked down. No one had been up there since my shift started. The main doors were bolted, and the keys were only with me and the day shift guards. I figure it might be a glitch. These old systems act up sometimes. But a cold, heavy feeling, like an icy hand gripping my stomach, told me this wasn't just a malfunction. I checked the third floor cameras. The image was grainy, as usual, but something caught my eye. A faint shadow, barely there, flickered across one of the shelves in the reference section. I zoomed in, but it was just books and darkness. "You're imagining things, Lucas," I muttered to myself, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching me from the other side of the screen. I grabbed my flashlight and headed up the old stone stairs. Each step echoed in the silence, like someone was answering my footsteps. The third floor was darker than the rest of the library. The ceiling lights were dimmer here, half of them flickering, casting jagged shadows across the walls. The air smelled of old paper and damp wood, like the library was exhaling slow, wet breaths. The narrow aisles between the shelves felt like tunnels leading to some unknown place. I made my way to the reference desk, where the camera had picked up the shadow. Everything was in place: books, scattered notepads, a few pens. But one thing stood out. A chair behind the desk was slightly turned, as if someone had sat in it and gotten up in a hurry. I was sure I'd left everything neat when I checked earlier. I touched the back of the chair. It was cold, unnaturally cold, like it had been pulled from a freezer. The hairs on my arms stood up. I swept my flashlight across the aisles, the beams sliding over the shelves. Nothing, but the silence felt alive, like it was screaming that something was here. I headed back down to the control room, trying to calm myself. Probably just the wind, or some dumb student sneaking around, I told myself. But when I checked the monitors again, the warning was still there. Unauthorized movement, third floor. I zoomed in on the camera. This time, the image was clearer. Behind one of the third floor windows, there was a blurry face. It wasn't distinct, but it was staring straight at the camera. Its eyes, if you could call them eyes, were two black voids, like bottomless pits. Its mouth, a thin, crooked line, looked like it was smiling. My breath caught in my throat. My hand shook as I zoomed in further, but the image blurred, and the face vanished. "This is too much," I whispered. I grabbed my flashlight again and raced up the stairs, two at a time. My heart was pounding in my chest. When I reached the third floor, everything was exactly as I'd left it. The chair was still turned, but no one was there. I checked the window from the camera feed. The glass was cold and damp, like someone had breathed on it. But there was no trace of a face, no sign of anything. "You're losing it, Lucas," I told myself. It was just a reflection. I went back to the control room, my legs heavy, like something was pulling me back. When I sat down on the monitors, I thought I was seeing things. On one of the third floor cameras, there I was, standing in the aisle by the reference desk, right next to that blurry face. It looked like someone was standing shoulder to shoulder with me, but I was alone. There was no one else up there. The hairs on my neck stood on end. I spun around, shining my flashlight into the darkness. Nothing, just silence and the shadows of the shelves. I looked back at the monitor. The image was still there. Me, and that face now clearer. Its skin was gray, like burnt paper, and its eyes seemed to see me, not the camera. Its smile was wider now, like it was getting closer. I reached out, as if I could wipe the image away. But when my fingers touched the screen, a loud, rasping noise erupted from the system's speakers, like labored breathing from somewhere far away. Then a whisper, low and drawn out, seemed to come from every corner of the library. "I found you." Suddenly, all the monitors went black. Total darkness. All I could hear was my own heartbeat and a new sound. A rustling, like pages turning, echoing from every direction. I flicked on my flashlight, but its beam was weak, like something was draining its battery. I swept the light around. The shadows seemed alive, sliding across the walls, like they were coming for me. For a split second, in the faint beam, I saw something. A hand, thin and gray, reaching out from behind a shelf. Its fingers were long and twisted, like dead branches. I bolted for the exit, but the door was locked. I fumbled for the key in my pocket. my hand shaking so badly I dropped it. As I bent to pick it up, a cold breath grazed the back of my neck, like someone was standing right behind me. I spun around, nothing. But when I looked down, a shadow stretched across the stone floor, long and impossibly tall. It wasn't mine. It was something else, looming like it reached the ceiling, bending closer. I finally got the door open and stumbled out into the cold night air. My heart was still pounding in my ears. When I glanced back at the library, I thought I saw a shadow move behind the third-floor window, watching me. I got in my car and drove as far as I could. But in the rearview mirror, for a split second, I thought I saw that face in the back seat with that same crooked smile. After that night, I never took another night shift. Even passing by the library feels like torture, but I can't escape it. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, I hear the sound of pages rustling in my apartment, like someone's flipping through a book. Worse, every time I open my laptop, there's a new video file, a short clip from the library security cameras. In every one, it's me standing in the third-floor aisle, and that face right beside me. Each time, it's a little clearer, a little closer. The sky was half cloudy, one of those autumn evenings where the clouds can't decide whether to be gloomy or hopeful. It was 5 in the afternoon, and the streets around my apartment were wrapped in an eerie quiet, like the city had taken a deep breath and held it. I'd only stepped out to grab milk and bread, a simple errand, something I'd done 1,000 times. The local shop was a few blocks away, the usual spot with its grimy glass storefront and the smell of fresh bread always lingering in the air. When I stepped out of the shop, I had a carton of milk in one hand and a bag of bread in the other. I glanced up at the sky. The clouds were heavy, like they might burst into rain any second. A chilly breeze brushed my face, and I pulled up the collar of my coat. That's when I felt it, a shift behind me, a gut feeling, like someone was staring at me from the shadows. I turned around, but there was nothing, just an empty sidewalk and a few cars parked along the street. I picked up my pace, not because I was scared, just restless. A few steps in, I heard it. Footsteps, a distinct sound, like heavy boots hitting the ground in a steady rhythm. Tap, 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 tap. I turned again, but no one was there. I told myself it was probably my own footsteps echoing off the pavement. But when I started walking again, the sound came back. Louder this time, closer. My heart beat a little faster. Relax, I told myself. It's probably just someone else walking. But my gut was screaming something else. I slowed my steps, just to test it. The sound slowed too, like someone was mimicking my exact rhythm. I sped up, and the sound sped up. Now I was sure. Someone was following me. I turned into a narrow alley, one of those old cobblestone ones that shimmer under the yellow streetlights. Maybe I could lose them in the maze of back streets. I stopped for a second, leaned against a wall, held my breath, and listened. Tap, tap. The sound was still there, but it seemed to come from a different corner now. I spun around. Nothing. Just the shadows of trees swaying in the wind. I was starting to doubt myself. Was I imagining it? Was the stress of the past few weeks messing with my head? But when I started walking again, the sound came back. Closer now, like someone was just a few steps behind me. The hairs on my neck stood up. Don't panic, I told myself. It's just a person. If they were dangerous, they'd have done something by now. But those words were just to calm myself down. My heart was pounding in my chest. I decided to change my route. Instead of heading straight home, I took a winding path. I zigzagged through 5 alleys, each one narrower and quieter than the last. Yellow lights spilled from the windows of houses, but no one was outside. It was like everyone was hiding indoors. The footsteps were still there. Tap, 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 tap. Wherever I went, they followed. I couldn't take it anymore. In the middle of one alley, I stopped, set the milk and bread on the ground, and spun around fast. No one. The sidewalk was empty, except for a black cat that darted across the street and vanished under a car. I let out a shaky breath and laughed at myself. You're losing it, man. Scaring yourself over nothing. But as I bent to pick up my stuff, a shadow moved at the corner of the street. It was quick, like a bird passing in front of a streetlight. My heart raced again. Just a shadow. I told myself, it's nothing. But my hands were trembling. I pulled out my phone and thought about the shop's camera. I knew the owner had a CCTV that recorded the entrance. If someone was behind me, it'd show up on the footage. I hurried back to the shop. The owner, Mr. Wilson, was restocking shelves. When I told him what happened, he chuckled at first, but when I insisted, he said, "All right, let's check the footage." We went behind the counter and pulled up the video. We found the moment I walked out of the shop. There I was in my gray coat, milk in hand, but no one was behind me. The sidewalk was completely empty. Not even a shadow, not even a blur. You sure someone was following you? Mr. Wilson asked with a crooked smile. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded and mumbled. Maybe I got it wrong. But as I was leaving the shop, something else caught my attention. In the video, as I walked out the door, there was a faint sound in the background like static. Tap tap, tap tap, exactly like the footsteps I'd heard. But there was nothing in the frame, just me and an empty sidewalk. That night, I kept looking over my shoulder the whole way home. I double-checked the lock on my apartment door. I set the milk and bread on the kitchen counter and sank onto the couch. But I couldn't relax. I kept feeling like something, or someone, was still watching me. I opened the window and stared out at the street. Nothing. Just the yellow glow of the street lights and the long shadows of the trees. A few days later, I found something even stranger. In a local online group, someone posted that others had felt the same thing. Someone following them in those streets. One person said they saw a tall man in a baseball cap, but when they turned, he was gone. Another said they heard footsteps, but saw no one. No one had any proof, no camera footage, just a feeling like mine. You've heard the whispers in the streets, felt the chill of unseen eyes, and caught the echo of footsteps that vanish when you turn. The city hides something, something that lurks just out of sight, trailing you through empty alleys. Are you brave enough to face it? Step outside tonight, alone, when the streets are quiet and the shadows stretch long. Walk the same path I did. Listen for the tap-tap of footsteps that don't belong. Check the reflections in shop windows, the corners of your vision. But don't look back too quickly, or you might see something you can't unseen. Share what you find in the local group. Maybe you'll uncover the truth, or maybe you'll find you first.